Ender's Game. You know, I heard a lot about this book over the years, and I myself never got into it until now. And I'm glad I waited, because I don't think I could have appreciated this book when I was younger. Ender's Game is sort of set in a futuristic Earth where we have been attacked twice by what we call buggers. They look like bugs. Now we are staging a third invasion, and as a result of the anticipated invasion, we have been raising child geniuses. Now, some of it is sort of only implied in the book, but not explicitly stated. But to my understanding, you're only allowed to have two children. And then if you have those two children and they need you to have a third, then you have a third. But that third child is typically looked down upon. It's kind of like, how they say mud blood in Harry Potter. They call these kids thirds. Now, our protagonist in Ender's Game is Andrew. His name is Ender. He has an older sister and an older brother. Peter and Valentine are their names. Now, Peter is too vicious, too aggressive, too crazy, too much of like a killer instinct. Valentine, she's too mild, too nice, too sympathetic. So they said, hey, we want something between the two. You can have a third child. Out comes Ender. Now, what they do to these child geniuses is they put a monitor in the back of their heads for a certain amount of time. It lets them see what they're thinking, what they're feeling, etc. And if you are chosen, you get sent to this school up in space where you have to train in zero gravity or null gravity in a battle room, and you basically are groomed to be in the military and to fight the impending invasion of the buggers. Now, Ender is chosen, and they keep. I like what Orson Scott Card did. He starts every chapter with a dialogue between two people, and we don't know who they are till like halfway into the book. But it basically prophesizes that Ender is going to be the one to save them. And at first I was like, okay, prophecy, yeah, we've heard this in like every fantasy book. But towards the end it makes a lot of sense as to why they were saying that. It has beautiful plot twists in it and beautiful reveals, and I don't want to say anything to give it away because I really think you should read this book, whether or not you're into sci-fi. It has a lot of great social commentary, and the way it describes these kids, I mean, you forget that Ender's like 6 years old in this. I think it chronicles him from like 6 to 12, because they're forced to grow up so quickly by being in this militant environment and being these geniuses. Now, what I loved most about Ender's Game was that growing up in a military family, I only can imagine the kind of things my father went through and his fellow colleagues. But I do have friends who went into the military and who do go to war, and they come back and they're a different person. And we don't know because we weren't there. We can only imagine how much it fucks you up to be in a war zone. And what happens to Ender over the course of this whole thing is just astonishing, and it's absolutely believable despite the age of the children. And I feel like it was such a satisfying and emotionally moving book because I gave such a shit about what happened to this kid, and you fall in love with him and you root for him. And when he is like picked on by the other kids, and when I say picked on, like the other kids are brutal, like they're about to like kill this kid, you feel so enraged. And when you read about his loneliness, because they're grooming him to be a commander, and when you're a commander, you can't necessarily have friends. You have to be that authoritative figure. You feel his loneliness and you relate to it, even though you're not in his situation. And I think that's what Mr. Card did the best, is that even though this is a sci-fi, futuristic, military setting, every one of us can relate to the sense of isolation, to the sense of loneliness and despair that Ender feels. And when he cries, I mean, I wanted to cry. So read Ender's Game. I believe that they're coming out with a movie for it, and I wish that you would read the book before the movie comes out, because I obviously haven't seen the movie yet, but I think it is a fantastic read, and there are just certain things that they can't do in movies that they do in books. They get into Ender's head in such a way that you feel like you're Ender going through this. And he's just such an endearing kid. I mean, he doesn't even feel like a kid in this. He feels like a grown-ass man. Like, by the end, I'm like, holy shit, you feel like you're 70 mentally, Ender. So, absolutely, pick up Ender's Game, read it, do yourself a favor, because I've read nothing like it, and I want to have sex with this book. Although, would that make me a pedophile? Because they're all children?